mean? Like, let me make a TikTok challenge. I am a hater. It is a craft that I have honed, and today I am here to share this gift with you all by telling you my least favorite books of the year. Nay, my most hated books of the year. I obviously definitely believe in different opinions and that everybody has a right to their opinion, yada yada. However, there are some books this year that while reading, I have wanted to claw my eyes out. And so, I am first going to be sharing the 11 books that I DNF'd this year, and I'm going to share with you all the books that I finished, but I wish I had DNF'd this year. I am going to begin with all the books that I DNF'd in May. I had an incredibly hectic month of May. In April, I was traveling for a bit over a week, and then I had multiple events, and then in May my dad flew to Australia and my sister got married, so I truly had no time to read a book that I did not want to read. So I DNF'd a few, which led to me only having 5-star reads in May, which was great for me. So let's start with it. The first book I DNF'd in May was Passion Project by London's Perry, and I was really looking forward to this one. It does tackle grief, and if you've watched any of my bookish videos, I love books that talk about grief. I love crying, I love being sad, I love relating, I love being that's all me. Except this one I just couldn't get into, mostly because I thought the main character was mean. It is a romance, so it's about this girl whose fiance, I believe, has passed away, and she's trying to begin anew. She lives in New York with her best friend, and the best friend sets her up on a blind date. She ends up ghosting the blind date. She doesn't show up, but then she runs into him at the restaurant where he works, and they begin a friendship where he helps her try to find her passion. So I think every weekend they go do a project in attempts to finding her passion or something that makes her happy. But I just couldn't get behind it, and look, man, I understand people that do bad things out of grief. I understand people that sometimes say things they don't mean because they were so sad. However, this girl just pissed me off.
Don't piss me off.
She really did. You ghosted this guy. He's a stranger. But then she meets him for the first person. She's like, I had never thought of him as a real human before. I just thought of him as a picture on my phone. I'm like, what do you mean? Girl, her friend has had a jewelry making business for years that she makes in their bedroom, in their living room in their shared apartment. And she never knew about it, or she knew, but she keeps on forgetting about it. She's so mean to everybody around her. She's so neglectful to everybody around her. She just forgets everything they ever tell her. And then whenever somebody tries to communicate with her or call her out on her behavior, she's like, oh, I'm sorry for grieving. Just abandon me like everybody else does. I'm like, girl, stand up. I'm also pretty sure they're not young. They're I think they're in their late 20s, and I'm just like, there's a point where you can't just blame everything on grief and mourning. There's an accountability threshold, and she hit, and then she kept on pushing and pushing, and I just could not stand her. So I DNF'd this book. I moved a little bit because I was slipping and almost falling off the bed. The next book I DNF'd, I truly don't remember why. It was Kiss Me Maybe by Gabriella. I remember now. By Gabriella Gami. I don't actually remember why I DNF'd, but I remember talking about this book with Layla on the bus. In case you didn't know, this is the Layla and Nour show. Layla's my sister. I am Nour. I remember talking about this on the bus and ranting about it so much. I was like, I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand the main characters. I think the main character has never been kissed, so she does this thing where she's gonna go on a date. Hold on, pause. Okay, the book literally came back to me in visions. But basically the main character has never been kissed. I believe she might be asexual. She creates this online scavenger hunt, and she sets it off on TikTok, and she's like, whoever can complete the scavenger hunt will get to win being my first kiss. But the whole time in this book, she's talking about how she doesn't believe in online dating and how the apps are the worst thing to ever happen to humanity and to romance. But a TikTok scavenger hunt is not? Every day I wake up and I read new sentences. She's kind of in love with this bartender, and the bartender is clearly in love with her. And I'm just like, I was on page 10, and I was like, her rants about online dating, and then going, I want to find love in an authentic way. let me make a TikTok challenge. I couldn't do it, y'all. The next book I DNF'd in May is You Between the Lines. I could go on and on about this book. I can't. I have a whole rant video on Instagram and TikTok, but I'm gonna repeat what I said in case you don't want to follow me. So stay with me, okay? These two, Will and Lee, I think her name is, Lay, I don't know how y'all say that name, go to the same school together. And when they're in year 11 or 12, she reads her writing to the writing class that she's in, like AP writing or something. And he offers constructive criticism and she takes it badly, which is so real. But we are 10 years later. They are both fighting for the same spot, like in a scholarship fellowship thing. And she is the most obnoxious person on earth. Let me tell you a few events. First of all, she is applying for a poetry fellowship, but she doesn't read poetry. She doesn't like poetry. She's constantly looking down on poetry. I have a friend who doesn't like poetry. See, if you're watching this, I love you. You know what she doesn't do? Apply to a poetry fellowship. You know what she does do? Mind her business. But this girl is applying for a poetry fellowship, and like the person who you get to win it like with is the only poet she reads. And I'm just being driven insane because there are so many people that deserve this fellowship more than her. And then there's also another scene. So I'm just going off like the scenes in this book that just drive me insane. There's also another thing where Will no longer goes by Will, he goes by William, or he no longer goes by William, he goes by Will, one of them. And she insists on calling him by that name. And for me, that's basically calling someone by their dead name. Like, he mentions it a billion times in the book. He's like, I don't go by that name anymore. I do not wish to be called that name. And this is something that icks me. It also happens in Spiral by Mel Cabra, which I'll definitely be mentioning soon. Y'all know that was coming. If somebody no longer goes by their full name or doesn't go by a nickname anymore, you need to respect that. And then, so 2 strikes. Third strike, she negatively talks about every other woman in this character. She's so not like other girls. It's painful. It's excruciating. And I hate to be talking about women this way. I do. And I'm not even at her worst crimes. No, I haven't even gotten there. So she literally talks negatively about everybody behind their back. She's so mean. And then she goes around telling people, oh, William's actually terribly rude. He's such like, he doesn't have any sportsmanship when it comes to other people's writing. She blows this one accident that she had in high school so out of proportion, tells everybody negative shit about him, and then lets them believe it, and he doesn't know why people suddenly don't like him anymore. And then I think my final... I actually can't. This book drives me mad. I actually can't. My final stroke. My final strike. This book gave me a stroke. My final strike is when she starts writing poetry from the perspective of Taylor Swift. How is this book real? How does this book get published? It's 2025. Taylor Swift has become this big capitalist label. She's no longer a real human. I know. All the books love to mention Taylor Swift. I know. But to write poetry, she also writes about Taylor's sex life through her perspective, like through Taylor's perspective. That's incredibly invasive and it's disgusting. And she writes about her then from the perspectives of her exes. Oh no, I just remembered another scene. So the Taylor Swift thing really was the like final nail in the coffin. But another thing that pissed me off that I had to laugh, she is 28 and her parents are getting a divorce and she is shattered over it. And she, I kid you not, says that this is the worst thing to ever happen to her because now when she gets good news, she's gonna have to make 2 phone calls instead of 1. Girl, people are dying. I'm gonna have to move on. I also DNF'd a novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. Do I have a real reason I DNF'd this book? No. But sometimes you read a chapter and you're just like, this book's not for me. And I don't know if I was in a bad mood when I read it. I don't know if I was just not having a good day. The main character mentions in the first chapter that she is, I can't remember if she's a librarian or a writer or something like that. It's mentioned at least 4 times. We get it. We get it. And I really do think I was just having a bad day because I had to put this away. In a very similar manner, I DNF'd Love and Focus by Lila Lee. I DNF'd this for quite a few reasons, but there was one that stood out to me, but I'll tell you in a sec. I didn't like the writing. It was a bit weird for me. Again, it's meant to be adulty. It felt way too young. I feel like some books, the city's the main character. You know, for like in Sex and the City, New York is the 8th girl or whatever it is. I've never seen that show. Sometimes, yeah, you're like, oh wow, New York is so present in this book. Like, it promised me sunshine. New York is a character, in my opinion. I felt like this book tried so hard to make San Francisco a character, and it didn't work. Unless I'm thinking of the wrong book, but I'm pretty sure I am. But my one thing that just like irks me, this might sound mean, but the author, who is Korean, made sure that we know that the main character is Korean in every single chapter, which I'm all for representation. Nobody call me racist. But literally, it was done so on the nose. It would be like, I was speaking with my family on Kakao Talk, which is a Korean app for Korean people to talk in. However, Koreans outside of Korea also use. And at one point I was like, guys, I think she's Korean. I think she is. It was mostly the writing that I just couldn't get past. It was very childish characters, but also that was just like a funny thing. And I'm like, oh, this can't be serious. This book, I DNF'd a while ago. It might have been in July. I read Heated Rivalry because a friend of a friend was recommending it to my friend. And my friend was like, oh, this person has recommended it to me quite often. Maybe we should look into it. So I said, bet. And I downloaded it and I couldn't get past chapter 1. It was bad. It was badly written, my opinion. It's my opinion. I found it badly written. I know it's meant to be like, it starts in like 2008 or something like that, but I really, like, I don't want to say anything that's too negative, but it felt like it was written by a child. And so I DNF'd. That being said, the show has me in a chokehold. It does. Shane and Ilya are my babies, and I will write for them. So maybe I should give the book a second chance. Who knows? I also DNF'd Savor It by Tara Jewett. I've read 2 other Tara Jewett books, which are The Co-op and Funny Feelings, and I loved these books so dearly. This book just didn't do it for me. I just wasn't interested. I felt like the main characters were better off friends than as romantic partners, and that's okay. 2 books that I DNF'd for the same reason are the Build a Boyfriend Project by Mason Deaver and Every Step She Takes by Alison Koshram, possibly. Both of them are meant to be adult romances, and they felt very young to me, and I was like, nobody talks like that, so I DNF'd. I tend to find, for some reason, that I prefer queer books that are YA, maybe because I figured out that I was queer quite early on. So sometimes, like, it's painful to read the book Every Step She Takes. She's going on so many blind dates with men to try and find the one, and it was like, I hate to see a sapphic woman forcing herself through dates with men. Alright, I have 2 more DNFs before we start talking about the books that I finished and I hated. And I'm gonna go through We Could Be Rats by Emily Austen first, because I consider this a soft DNF. I, for some reason, attempted to read this on vacation. The book, without spoiling anything, is incredibly sad. So I got to 27% and I couldn't continue because I got incredibly sad. So it is on pause for now. I would like to pick it up eventually because I really do enjoy Emily Austen's books. They're all about sapphic autistic baddies. I wish sapphic autistic baddies were real. I don't know if I will pick it up again or not. I would like to. And then finally, I DNF'd Revolve of the Ice by Val Cabra. 1 chapter in. I actually attempted to listen to this on audio and I just couldn't get through it. I do understand that most new adult college romances are spicy. However, I find it really, really difficult to get into a book when from the very first chapter there's so much sex, there are like so much like attention to that, or like it'll open up with the male character and he'll be like, oh, there's this sexy naked woman next to me, I need to get to practice. Or it opens up with the female character and she's like, oh, I haven't gotten laid by in weeks, which is why I've been so mean to everybody around me. I tend to find that a lot of college, especially college sports romances, open up this way, and I don't like that. I that's just a personal opinion. With spies in books, I like there to be a build-up. I DNF'd that for that reason, and I also just didn't like the writing. I do understand that people in college are still quite young, but you're trying to convince me that those people are like elite athletes who are gonna be in a relationship, and these relationships are gonna be their forever partners, yet they're still so immature and insincere in their actions, and it don't work for me. So I DNF'd that. Maybe I'll pick it up for the giggles, maybe not. I just have a lot more books that I would prefer to give my time to. Okay friends, let's get to the part in the books that I did finish and I hated. Spiral by Bell Cabra. I'm not gonna say anything about this because I've spoken in length and I keep on saying I'm gonna make a Spiral hate video, and I just haven't gotten around. I actually started it and I never finished it because I laughed too hard that I just had to pause. But I hated this book. I hated it also has the trope where like she calls him by his full name and he hates it because his abusive father used to call him by his name, and then by the end he's like, but I love it coming from you. I'm like, that's weird for me. And also she's a freelance ballerina that has never danced professionally, and yet she somehow ends up bagging the main role of Odette Adil in Swan Lake with like the Nova Ballet Theater, the biggest company in America. I can't comprehend that. I can't. And so I Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams. I actually think it's my last video. I talk about this in depth, but I really didn't like the juvenile actions between these characters. I think they might be in their 30s, but she's like the town's darling and he's her enemy. They're both prime school teachers, and he moved away from the city after they finished studying, and he's just moved back into their town, and everybody in the town hates him and treats him really badly just because she hates him. Like there's parts where like he gets burnt milk, I think, in his drink. Like he goes into a cafe and they pretend there are no empty seats. I'm just like, imagine trying to go on about your life and all these adults in the town are treating you like that. Yeah, that's embarrassing. I don't know what possessed me to finish it, honestly. I was like, maybe this time I need to learn to stop reading Sarah Adams and Bell Cabra properly. I also want to mention Rewind It Back by Liz Tomford, which I also went on a extended rant on in my last video. I really didn't like this. I didn't like that the main guy is a capitalist prick who treats Haley, can't remember her name, really negatively, and he's very much has a superiority complex and just treats her like shit, really. He treats her like she is inferior to him, and then at the end it all turns around and he's like, well, I didn't know what to do because we were 19, and I'm like, it's been 10 years and you've never taken accountability. But yeah, there's a lot of scenes that stood out to me in this book where I was just like gagging and throwing up, but I really wanted to finish it because I love the series and I wanted to finish it. A disappointment. And I'm gonna finish up with a strong one, People Watching by Hannah Bonham Young. In my last video, I tier ranked all the love interests. My bottom rank was Put Him Behind Bars, and I still wholeheartedly agree that the love interest from this book should be in jail, or at least some sort of rehab center. He is sick in the head and I don't like him and I don't trust him. Back to like the sex thing we were talking about earlier, like the very first opening scene is Prudence in her parents' shop really struggling because her mom, who has early onset Alzheimer's, has woken up thinking it's her wedding day. So clearly she doesn't remember Prudence because if it's her wedding day, she doesn't remember having a grown adult kid. And she's in the shop and he's just dropped by to pick something up and he starts over sexualizing her and like imagining her naked, and he's like, oh, what I would do with that hair wrapped around my fist. I don't want to know. And I just truly think that's disgusting. It also makes me really uncomfortable. You know, like we haven't even met yet and you're already imagining me naked under you. It's really disturbing. That's like the whole book. And I'm okay with a friends with benefits like situation, but this was just truly disgusting and I don't like it. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. Milo, who names his kid Milo? Milo's a predator and he is disgusting and needs to be looked up. So that is 15 books that I read this year that I hated, which is not bad considering I've read 72 books. So for me to hate 15 of them, like statistically, I don't know how much that is in percentage, but I feel like that's pretty okay. not bad. So thank you for watching. You guys know I love to hate. Let me know if you want me to hate some more. Like, I am planning on making a favorites video, however I'm still reading some pretty good books, so that might not come till 2026 until I've officially wrapped my reading for the year. Yeah, bye.